Actually, I'm going to show you how we did that. I wish I would have had this stuff when I was in the Navy. Actually, painter's tape. We used the old beige masking tape. So you sit there and you'd use your ruler, or you'd use a putty knife to do your cuts with. Of course, I wouldn't have paper sticking to it. But see how much fun that would be. Okay, that's the easy part, right? Now the fun part. Getting your inside corners. You could cheat a little bit here, because when you drew your lines, you extend your marks a little bit and you can find them easier. You might also be wondering why I'm not using an X-Acto knife to do this. And the biggest reason was we didn't want to scratch the aircraft. And I'm sure you're thinking, well, yeah, but you can just paint it, so what's the big deal? Well, an X-Acto knife blade is very hard, and aircraft aluminum is very soft. You would actually score into the metal with an X-Acto knife. So we learned this trick with the ruler because you could lay it right on the skin and not scratch it. And there you go. One letter. Not too bad, huh? And you clean up, and then once you got the outline done, you'd come along with your paper and you could lay it down, you know, and you tape that and you'd have paper out to here and come along with your spray gun and and then you'd have crap going everywhere. And once it was done, you'd let it dry a little bit, then you'd peel it off, and then you'd find little runs, and so you go along with your rag and your thinner, and you'd clean it up a little bit. Okay, so that's an A. That one came out to, what do they say, 5.5 strokes wide, and all these were 4.5, so you can see they're different sizes. Letter I is just a single line, and a 1. I don't think we differentiated that. No, we just did number 1 straight vertical lines. A lot of times when I was doing these on the aircraft, you'd start off, you'd find one good straight line. A lot of times you'd find a what'd you call it? Like a seam where the rivet lines went. Use that for your start point. So you make one straight line, and you just take your tape and just pull it all the way across and get it as straight as you could, and you use that for your starting point, and then everything else will be relative to that. So you'd start off with your piece of tape, you go all the way across, and you take your Sharpie, and you'd say, okay, if you'd write down on a piece of paper somewhere what the letters were, so you'd write UN, or USNS space, and you draw a space, and then Kilauea, and then I would write down, and something smaller, 4.5, and then 1, and then 4.5, and actually do my marks how big they were going to be. and then you'd start. It would kind of depend on how long it was, I guess. But we had to center it in the space we were doing. So by doing it on that first piece of tape first, sometimes you could cheat and pull the whole tape off and move it if you thought you were too far over. Usually that wouldn't work well. So you'd sit there on a piece of paper first and you'd write down all the letters, how big they were, all the numbers, all the spaces. Usually a double space between words, so it would be 2 strokes, I think. And I think I fudged that on one of the aircraft that we were doing because it seemed too close together, so we made like 3 or 4 strokes between the word just to make it look easier to read because it just ran right together. And so you come up with the numbers, add it all up, measure how big of an area you had, subtract the numbers, divide it by 2 or whatever, then you come in, find your start point, go across, and like so. So, thankfully we didn't have to do that very often, and once you had it done the first time, you almost never completely started from scratch. You know, when the aircraft was new, you didn't have to do it. Although a couple of times during Desert Storm I did completely repaint part of the aircraft just to get a clean start. And so then I had to redo the whole layout again. So it did happen once in a while. See you. Yeah, a lot of this kind of stuff, once you got it going, you would do a long line, you know, as long as you could. So if they're all straight, and by doing that, because that same 4.5 inch pattern and all of these marks that were on the stroke bar, you know, he'd carry those all the way across, and so we'd get the longest ruler we could find, or longest straight edge, and he'd mark one end and the other end, and then you'd pull them all the way across and just tick, 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 tick all the way down. Save you a bunch of time. When I was cutting the vinyl letters, I came up with a whole different way of doing it that was even faster than the stroke bar, but it wasn't practical for aircraft use. But what I had was, on our desk we had a piece of glass. And so I had done a piece of paper like this with all the marks, and I extended all the marks all the way out. And also my angles. And so what I could do is I could lay my paper, my cutting vinyl, over the glass, over the marks, and I could just take my ruler and find the marks and just cut with my X-Acto knife, because we can cut on the glass with the X-Acto. And I didn't measure at all then. I just lay the piece down, chop, 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 and in just a few seconds I'd have a letter done. And I showed that to a couple people, and nobody had ever thought to try it that way before. But then again, you couldn't do that on the aircraft, so they wouldn't teach you tricks that you couldn't use, I guess. What are we doing? R. Okay, so dun, 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 dun. Why am I doing an R? Oh, yeah, I remember now. Okay, so this one. So we can skip that one. This one.